from the Melbourne Live Show. And in today's show, what I like to talk to you about really is the key idea behind validating whether someone is going to pay for your online course. You see, many of you, right, when you start out and you have a passion, you have something that you're so passionate about, and this is where you think that you could just put it out there and people are going to be able to benefit from it. And more often than not, that is true. However, when you look at online courses, you need to pay attention to a few things. Number one is that you need to know that you have to be more than just an online trainer when creating a successful online course. Now, the next thing that you really need to look into is in terms of you yourself as an entrepreneur. You have to have that business acumen and to be able to put on that business hat in order to validate and to make sure that the online course that you're creating is going to sell, right? The next thing that you really want to be able to do is the marketing part, right? And that's where many online course creators, that's where they lack. And the fourth thing, right? The fourth thing that you really must have, it's the ability to be a online course producer. And so when we talk about being an online course producer, this is really where we talk about knowing how to set up your school, all that technical stuff. And so what are some of the things that you must do? And that's the purpose why I created this checklist, right? This checklist, the whole purpose of it is to kind of help you, take you through step by step in terms of to be able to create and sell your online course with confidence. So if you want to check out the checklist, this is where you could go. All right. There you go. Right. So this is where you can get the checklist itself. So really encourage you to think about considering getting this checklist, not just because it's something that I'm promoting, but because it's going to help you. Plus, for whatever reason, if it doesn't suit your need, there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, at any point in time within that 30-day period, if you have purchased it and you find out that it's not something that you're looking for, drop us an email and we're more than glad to facilitate the money back, right? So let's get down to today's session itself. Now, today's session, what I would like to share with you, it's more of a continuation of what we discussed yesterday. And so if you remember, and if you have not saw the video yesterday, be sure to check it out. So yesterday when we talked about this, essentially we were talking about the whole idea that when you create the course, you must ensure that that is something that people want. So we went through the questions of, what are the questions that you can ask to make sure that people actually want it. Now, people wanting it is one thing, right? Because after they want it, they may not pay for it. Let me give you an example. So my wife homeschooled both my kids before primary school. And so one of the key things that was always in my mind was I was asking her where does she get her materials from? And so she tells me that she spent some time Googling it and looking at material that she can get. And so my follow-up question to her was that is there a possibility to sell those information, right? Can we create a business out of this? And her response to that was that, well, many of the materials are free, although one of the key pain points for homeschoolers is that they have to spend an enormous amount of time trying to look for good resources. And sometimes time is not something that they have. And so if you offer it to them at a reasonable price, that could be a potential. However, when we further dig into the demand is definitely there. I mean, people are definitely looking for worksheets and all the good stuff, right? But the thing is that well, demand is one thing. The other thing really is that will people pay for it, right? So the thing is, you have all these homeschoolers who are looking at, whether can I get better materials, but they're not going to pay. And so establishing that they want it is just one part of the equation. The other thing that you really have to consider, right, is whether will they pay for it. So once again, establishing that. So once again, establishing that they want it is just one part of the equation. What you really need to do is to also determine that they will pay for it. All right, and so that is the topic that we're going to be talking about here today. And once again, if you are launching or you want to be creating online courses, then you definitely want to check out the checklist, because it is where I take you through step by step what are some of the things that you need, what are the steps that you need to go through in order to make sure that you are able to create and sell your online course with confidence. Right, so that is the link to this is the link to go to. Okay, so let's get into today's sharing, and this is what I would really want to share with you here today. So as I mentioned, them wanting it's one part of the equation. The other thing that you really want to establish is, will they pay for it? So how do you find out if people would pay for certain thing? Now, the worst question to ask would be, would you be willing to pay for X? Reason being, when you talked about X, and if X does not exist, then how would the person know whether he or she is going to pay for it, right? So the worst question is to ask someone, will you pay for X? Because they do not know what X is. And more importantly, they are not able to establish what is the value of X. So what we want to do here is we want to get into what does it mean when we talked about X, right? And when we talked about what's some of the great questions that we can ask here. And so this is where I want to get to it here today. So one of the questions that I always ask is, how much time do you spend on it? So we know that they have a problem, and we want to establish that they are actually actively looking for solutions to resolve that problem. So one of the key questions that I would always ask is, how much time do you spend on it? And inevitably, they will give you some variations of the answer. Sometimes it's like, I just don't spend much time on it. It's not really important. Then you know that, they will not pay for this. But if they tell you that, I spend like the entire weekend trying to get all this thing together. I spend the entire weekend. I mean, if they tell you, I spend the entire weekend putting all my ducks in a row, and you can hear from their voice that frustration and that agony, you know that they have spent an enormous amount of time on it. And they have also demonstrated to you that it is something that it's important enough for them, because otherwise they would not be spending the time on it. So that's the first question that I will ask them. The next thing, what I want to do is I want to know, how do they resolve it? So I would want to ask them, tell me the last time that this thing happened, right? Tell me the last time that this thing happened. So share with me, how long ago was that? Well, it was 3 years, 5 years ago, and it doesn't bother me anymore. Then you know that they're not going to be willing to pay. But if they say, oh, it's so often, every time I want to do this thing will happen to me. The last time it happened to me was just last week. So I want to know when was the last time this happened to them? And more importantly, I also want to find out from them, what did they do exactly to resolve it? So I would, definitely ask them a bunch of follow-up questions, and that's what it is, right? I will want to ask them that. So first, so never ask them the question of how much will you pay for X, assuming X is the product that you are selling, assuming X is the thing that you are providing, because A, they would not know how much to tell you, and if in any case, it will probably be an arbitrary amount. So never ask them how much would you pay for X, because they wouldn't know how much to tell you. And if any figure that they tell you is going to be arbitrary. Secondly, when you ask them that question, there is no way for them to, and for you to determine the value of that. All right. So never ask them the question of how much will you pay for X, because A, whatever amount that they give you is going to be arbitrary. B, you wouldn't be able to put a dollar amount or a value to that pain point or that desire that they want to achieve. So what are the questions that you should ask them? First, ask them, how much time do you spend on it? So it is that problem that they have. How much time do you spend on it? Because if they tell you, I spent the entire weekend trying to put all my ducks in a row, you know this is something that they are bothered about. And if they say, well, I don't really spend a lot of time on it, right, then it means that it's not important to them. And if it's not important to them, obviously they are not going to pay for it. The next question that I would ask is, when was the last time this thing happened? Because I want to establish, is it something that is recurring, or is it something that is seasonal, or is it something that is one-off? So based on their answers, you would then ask a series of follow-up questions. And the question that I would always ask is, walk me through, what did you do to resolve it? Walk me through, what did you do to resolve it? Because then they will describe to you what is it that they have done to resolve the problem or to achieve the goal that they want to achieve. So ask them, when was the last time? And then the follow-up question, walk me through that. Now, if they tell you, oh, it only happened once, then you know that it is a one-off situation, and likelihood they are not going to be willing to pay for it, right? And then the third question is to ask yourself, is this person a complainer or is this person a customer? Because there will be some people who would whine about a particular problem, but you know that it is not huge enough, or it is not big enough a deal for them to want to resolve it. And so they just complain about it. I mean, we all do, right? But there are people who gripe about it, and they will tell you, I wish there was this, or they would describe to you what is it that they are looking for. And that is where you are able to determine that this person is likelihood going to be a customer. So those are the questions that you want to ask, right? And if you got questions for me, please feel free to leave it in the comments, especially for those of you who are on Facebook. I'm able to see your questions as you leave it in, because this software that I'm using allows me to do that. And so once again, the reason why I'm doing this daily live show is a few things, right? So number one, it's because we are in the process of actually launching something really, really interesting. I can't tell you much for now, but what I can tell you is that we're going to be running a series of live shows that would give you a sense of how to resolve some of the problems. So that's all I can say. But in case you are wondering, or in case you are one of those people who are, struggling with, you have an online course, and marketing to the learners is something that you struggle with, then this checklist is for you. Or if you're someone who has figured out, you have a market, they are willing to pay. But your problem is more of, how do I set up my school? How do I set up my online course in such a way? Should I put it on the marketplace like Udemy, or I put it, on a self-hosted platform? How much is it going to cost me? Do I require technical skills? Then this checklist is for you, right? Or if you're looking at, the first time you're launching, you already established that, and you're looking at launching, how do you sell it, right? How do you sell that online course? Again, this is also the checklist that you want to get, because in it, I detail for you what are the steps that you must take, and everything has got a check box for you to check it off. All right, so this is where you are able to get the checklist. So now here, right? So over here is where you are able to get the checklist. Make sure you check it out, because it costs only $14, plus it's a 30-day money back guarantee. So at any point in time, if you have purchased it and you felt that it didn't meet your need, send me an email, send us a contact, and we'll be more than glad to facilitate that refund. Right, full refund, no question asked, and you get to keep the checklist. All right. Okay. Now, just in case some of you are wondering, like, what is the setup that I use for this? I'm going to share it with you on another time. All right. So meanwhile, this is Melvin from the Melvin Live Show. Stay safe, and I will talk to you again. Bye-bye.